Have you ever felt the weight of air when it stops moving around you? Not the silence of an empty room, but the silence that settles in the middle of a crowd, a vacuum that forms exactly where you stand. It's strange physics, this. An invisible force that whispers you no longer belong in that orbit. I've learned to measure my existence by this pressure, by this silence. It's been nearly a year since I became a ghost, and the cruelest part is that nobody had to die for it to happen. Sometimes I wonder if they notice. If, from the corner of their eye, they catch a distortion in the air where I used to be. Or does memory fade as quickly as an image on a switched-off screen? My name is Robert. 56 years old, 28 of them at this firm. I watched this building rise, beam by beam. I knew the smell of fresh paint, the hollow echo of hallways before they were filled with desks and voices. I helped fill them. Today, the smell is of single-serve coffee pods and a citrus fragrance that seems to emanate from the very air vents. The sound is of mechanical keyboards clicking in frantic rhythm, a language my fingers, accustomed to the soft, silent touch of membrane keys, can no longer decode. The heart of this place beats at a frequency mine can't match anymore. It beats, yes, but out of sync, arrhythmic, and every arrhythmia, sooner or later, is seen as a flaw in the system. It all began with her arrival. Jessica, 31 years old, a smile that seemed algorithmically optimized for engagement, and an energy that filled any room. She didn't walk, she glided. She brought an entire team with her, young like her, who communicated through GIFs in Microsoft Teams and used words like ecosystem, synergy, game-changing. They were like a newly discovered species, perfectly adapted to this new climate. I, on the other hand, was the fossil. Living proof of an extinct era they studied with polite, almost academic curiosity. At first I tried. God, how I tried. Not from fear, but from a basic human instinct to belong. I saw that gleam in their eyes when they discussed projects, a passion I had felt so many times myself, and I wanted to connect to that current. One day, in a meeting, Jessica presented a plan for a new client acquisition strategy, full of interactive dashboards and AI-driven analytics. It was brilliant, I'll admit, but there was a flaw, a blind spot my experience allowed me to see. I waited for a pause, and, with a voice that already sounded anachronistic even to me, suggested, "Jessica, this is excellent. But if we cross-reference this data with seasonal client patterns from the past 7 years, we might anticipate a dip in Q3. We've seen this pattern before, during the Phoenix Initiative back in 2018. We could get ahead of it." The silence that followed lasted only a heartbeat, but it contained an eternity. Jessica looked at me, not with anger, but with a kind of amused compassion, as if I were a child showing a crayon drawing to an architect. "That's solid input, Robert," she said, and the word input sounded foreign on her lips. "But our machine learning platform adapts in real time. We need to be agile. Embrace the chaos. It's our culture now." She winked at her team, a signal of complicity, and they nodded in unison. In that moment, I understood. My experience wasn't an asset anymore. It was ballast, a set of archived data the new system couldn't read. From then on, every attempt I made to connect was like trying to tune an AM radio in the age of streaming. I brought a box of maple donuts from the local bakery, the kind I knew everyone used to love. "That's so sweet, Robert," said one of the younger associates, Emma. "Too bad I'm doing keto right now, but the gesture is lovely." The word sweet hit me like a velvet slap. It wasn't a compliment. It was a diminutive. I was no longer a colleague. I was the kindly, slightly lost uncle who shows up at family gatherings. The final blow came on a Thursday. I overheard them planning drinks at a new rooftop bar downtown, someplace with exposed brick and Edison bulbs. My name, predictably, wasn't mentioned. They didn't exclude me. I simply didn't exist in their universe of possibilities. But the loneliness of that afternoon was so dense, so tangible, that it gave me desperate courage. I stood up from my desk and walked over to the cluster forming near Jessica's workstation. The laughter stopped instantly. The air stopped moving. "Hey, everyone." My voice came out weaker than intended. "This place you're going to, is it good? I was thinking of stopping by, too." The smile on Jessica's face was a masterpiece of social engineering. Controlled, professional, but edged with panic. "Oh, sure, Robert. You should totally come. We'll probably be there pretty late. Though, you know how it is." I knew. I knew exactly how it was. That, sure, was the most politely locked door I'd ever encountered. I walked back to my desk feeling the weight of their stares on my back. Not judgmental stares, but relieved ones. The obstacle had removed itself. That night, at home, looking at my own reflection in the dark window glass, I didn't feel anger. I felt a sadness that seemed to rise from the earth's core, an obsolescence eating me from within. I decided I couldn't accept being discontinued in silence. I needed a witness. That's why I scheduled the meeting with Patricia, the HR director. She was around my age, maybe slightly younger, and I believed she would understand. In her sterile office, with plastic plants and certificates on the wall, I opened up. I talked about the cultural barrier, about feeling like a stranger in my own professional home, about how my experience was treated like a useless relic. I didn't accuse anyone. I simply described the silence. Patricia listened with seemingly genuine empathy. She took notes on her tablet. "Robert, I take this very seriously," she said, her eyes conveying concern. "The company values an inclusive environment for everyone. I'll speak with the team, understand their perspective. I promise we'll work this out." I left that office with a spark of hope I hadn't felt in months. I imagined conversations, mediations, mutual understanding. I imagined Jessica perhaps realizing, perhaps saying, "Sorry, we didn't mean it that way." I didn't want an apology. I just wanted the air moving around me again. A week later, Patricia called me back for a second meeting. Same office, but the atmosphere had shifted. The empathy in her eyes had been replaced by professional caution. The air was heavy, motionless. "Robert, please sit," she said, without her previous smile. I spoke with Jessica's team. I leaned forward, anxious. "And?" She paused, choosing words like a surgeon selects a scalpel. "Robert, the team, they feel uncomfortable." The word hung in the air between us. Uncomfortable. With me. "They reported," Patricia continued, her voice now stripped of emotion, "that your attempts to integrate have been interpreted as intrusive. One of the team members mentioned feeling monitored. They described the bar situation as extremely awkward. They feel constant pressure to include you, and this, according to them, is creating a tense work environment and affecting productivity." I heard every word, but my brain refused to process them. It was like hearing simultaneous translation from a language I didn't know. My loneliness had been rebranded as harassment. My desire to belong was now undue pressure. My donuts, my report, my suggestion about drinks, were the weapons of a crime I didn't know I was committing. The world turned upside down, or maybe I finally realized it had always been that way, and I was the one walking in the wrong direction. "Perception creates workplace reality, Robert," Patricia said, and that phrase was the anesthesia before the final cut. "And the perception here is that there's a mismatch. There was no punishment, no formal process. It was all much cleaner, more efficient. The following week, a company-wide email announced my transition to a new role, Senior Strategic Archive Consultant. My desk was moved to a glass office at the end of the hall, an aquarium overlooking the file storage room, a mausoleum with climate control. That same week, Jessica was promoted to Innovation Director. In a meeting, she was applauded for having streamlined workflow and strengthened team culture. And here I am, sitting in this room, looking through glass at the main office. I watch them laughing, collaborating at whiteboards, flowing from meeting to meeting. They are the beating heart. And I am the memory, the archive, the silent verdict. Today I understand. The company didn't punish me. It optimized me, removed friction from the system. The problem was never my age, or my ideas, or my maple donuts. The problem was what I represented. I was a mirror, a living reminder that every system eventually becomes obsolete, that every heart one day beats slower. And nobody, absolutely nobody, wants to be reminded of their own finitude while racing toward the future. I wasn't fired. I was archived. And the silence now is the only thing that answers me. I take a sip of my coffee, long since cold in the mug. It tastes bitter and familiar, like time itself. And I drink it slowly to the end.